Welcome back to the show today. We are talking about ego in basketball and how the perception of oneself and the need for validation can ruin a potentially fulfilling career and squander someone's inherent talent. One thing I've noticed is that old head NBA players, when they're being interviewed, are usually surprisingly humble and grateful for the careers that they have. And the stories that they most enjoy telling are sort of self-deprecating, or they're stories about how incredible another player was. The first question Q Rich and D Miles ask on their podcast is, who was the first player to bust your ass? And just about every time the player has the answer cocked and loaded. Even Kobe Bryant, one of the biggest egos of all time, relished the opportunity to talk about Nick Van Exel doing work on him.
Who was the first person to bust your ass?
Nick Van Exel. Yeah, Nick the Quick was getting me in practice. You know, he kept saying, you reach, I teach, you reach, I teach. And he was hitting me with that little bop stuff and drove me crazy.
So even the memories that these guys have about the game and their careers is a clear indication of how much they loved their experience in the NBA and how privileged they were to have the opportunity to play at the highest level of the game they love. One star player who I think exemplifies loving the game and being there for the game is the big fundamental Tim Duncan. Not just Duncan, really, it's that whole Spurs team. You could just tell there were great vibes on that team and a sense of real brotherhood. I think you get that when the best player on your team is winning MVP, but still insists that the coaches and all the other players treat him like everyone else. Here's Pop talking about the environment that Tim Duncan fostered on the Spurs.
Because he's been the best teammate anybody could ever imagine. Think about how many people have played with him. And all Tim Duncan has to do is he raises one of those arms, right or left, he puts it on their shoulder. It's a warmth and a comfort that they feel that allows them to become the best possible player they can be.
So when your best player doesn't lean into his power and leverage, the second best players aren't going to care if they're the second best players or the third best players. It doesn't matter. There's a video from 1999 on YouTube where the Spurs are just hanging out playing video games before the finals. They're just enjoying each other's company, killing time. Tim Duncan in this video just doesn't even seem aware of his own stardom. This is what leadership looks like. The Spurs were Tim Duncan's team, but he would have never said that. So I have to talk about Jordan Poole. I'm honestly in disbelief of some of the things I see this guy do. And listen, I'm all about showboating. I love it. The NBA is entertainment, so throw a little sauce on that game winner. Hit him with a night-night, Steph. I don't care. But when your team is the worst team in the league and you are on the trajectory to have the worst season in NBA history, don't celebrate when you make a three-pointer. Especially not a celebration that you clearly planned before the game. Okay, I rock with the Nuggets. I'll be real. So it wasn't a great mood a few weeks ago when I saw the Wizards pick apart the Nuggets. And Poole had a great shooting night. He was 9 for 20. But that was his team's 4th win in the season. They were still the worst team in the NBA. But he was doing this type of stuff after he make a bucket. Part of me thinks he doesn't know how bad his team's record is. And he's always doing stuff like this. Here he makes Peyton Pritchard fall down. Good job. Now he's got a wide open 3. But he points at him. Sam Hauser closes him out and he loses his look. The Wizards were down 16 points. They needed that open 3. Here he does it again. He beats Cade. Cade's a good defender. Good job, Jordan Poole. He shakes him off. He's got the open 2, but he has to stun on him. It's in his nature. He's probably been watching Harden do this his whole life. It's how he plays the game. But this is the NBA, and Asor Thompson doesn't let that slide, and he blocks his shot. This is him fully not paying attention when his coach is drawing up a play. Wes Unseld Jr. has his whiteboard, and he's explaining something seeming fairly complicated. Poole's teammate politely suggests that maybe he take a look at the board. Poole snaps at him, the timeout ends, and Poole realizes he has no idea what's going on, and tries to sneak a peek at the whiteboard before the game starts up again. Listen, I know that clip is over a year old, but nothing's changed, man. YouTube is full of clips of Jordan Poole not being interested in playing winning basketball, but very interested in drawing attention to himself. He's also a big trash talker too, which I think can be a selfless act sometimes. Sometimes guys will get in the face of other guys to protect their own guys as a gesture of solidarity, but that's not the case with Poole, because he'll even degrade his own teammates.
Jordan came in the camp talking to everybody, and I remember one day, him and Glenn Robinson III, they got into it. All these guys are coming to me like, tell him to shut up. His young ass always got something to say. But I'm like, I'm not going to tell him to shut up. If you can't handle him talking, that's on you. At that moment, though, the way he was getting under guys' skin, I appreciated that.
Yeah, Draymond appreciated that until it was him. Poole called Draymond an expensive backpack for Steph, and then Draymond punched him in the face. Listen, Draymond is toxic too. It was his fault. He shouldn't have done that. Even Draymond admits that now. But I think it kind of tells you everything you need to know about Jordan Poole. He's insecure and he needs to tear other people down to feel good about himself. I think him winning a championship and then signing a giant contract extension was the worst thing for him. He's in a position where he feels like he has nothing to prove. He can just hang out in DC and play playground basketball. And the funny thing is, I think Jordan Poole thinks he's going to be traded. I don't think he's taking responsibility for the failure of this team. He's just showcasing his flashy moves in hopes that some team will say, wow, that guy's awesome, and they'll trade for him at the deadline. I don't believe this man is living in reality. Another player I have to talk about is Spencer Dinwiddie. He's a player I wanted to like. I felt like he got shafted in Brooklyn when KD and Kyrie joined the team. He also made his own shoes. He would auction off the shoes he wore during the game and gave the proceeds to kids who want to go to college. That's pretty cool. But the longer I follow Spencer Dinwiddie, the more you realize drama seems to follow him. He signed with the Wizards in 2021, and about halfway through the season, there were multiple anonymous sources saying that he was kind of a cancer in the locker room. Okay, let's just assume one person had it out for Spencer. But then he is traded mid-season. He had just signed there. He gets traded to the Mavs, and then in 2023, after a loss to his old team, the Wizards, he sneak disses the Wizards and says they're not even playing winning basketball. So this loss is particularly hard. Former teammate Kyle Kuzma claps back at him. Then Dinwiddie says this.
But you didn't do anything else on Twitter. Do you have a response now?
Didn't I just say I was petty? What's that thing Draymond just said where he said insecurity is loud? There are a lot of guys that have different things that drive them and motivate them. I think him and the way he approaches life, fame, all that stuff, that we could see that his priorities tend to vary, right? Like that's why he dressed the way he does. He, approaches basketball the way he does, the comments he makes.
Just because you know you're petty and you say you're petty doesn't make it better. It actually makes it worse. Dinwiddie perpetually seems discontent with his role, whatever team he's on. Then on Theo Pinson's podcast, he spends the entire episode talking about how good he is at basketball and how other people are out to get him.
You took me from my boys, basically. And then you asked me to do a very specific task. And I did it. And you need to help feature our trade pieces. I will do what you asked of me. And then the reward that they gave me was, we're going to kick you out the door. And not just that, we're going to double down on some shit that happened to you from 3 years ago. Because if we say it, your career is over.
Spencer is the guy that you grew up with that needs you to know how good he could have been or how good he should have been if things had just gone his way and the world wasn't trying to get him. Refusing to believe that he might actually be a little bit responsible for the situations he finds himself in. So I want to talk about a player who is the opposite of Spencer Dinwiddie. I want to talk about how awesome Jeff Teague is. So Jeff Teague started a podcast after he retired, and it is great. Jeff Teague is incredibly vulnerable and willing to look at himself honestly. He tells embarrassing stories about himself and praises other guys in the process.
Fox made me want to go to the bench. He just kept running at me. I'm like, he think I'm sweet. Oh yeah, my knees still suffering from them change of directions.
He just wants to hang out and tell funny stories about when he was in the league. He talks about having to fly coach in the middle seat.
I asked Mike, I said, what's 31E? 31E, I'm calculating my head. I'm looking at the seats. I'm counting the thing on back. I'm like, damn, this back kind of far. White dude sitting there. I'm like, I know I ain't got the middle seat. Mike bust out rolling.
He talks about going to the club and everyone ignoring him.
Gorgie and Wig at a table. Man, our table empty. Man, his table, the Prince jersey walking by. I was like, damn. No, damn.
He talks about his teammate Tracy McGrady coming in and calling him trash.
The third year I was starting point guard. He came to our team. And he was really pissed that I was starting. They start calling the starting line of the groups. I'm like, yeah. He like, man, this trash. I'm like, heart drop, like, oh, he got me up.
Jeff Teague can do this because he's okay with himself. He doesn't have anything to prove. He had a long career in the NBA. He was an all-star. He's a champion. He's willing to show all aspects of himself and be authentic. I think podcasts like his and the Knucklehead podcast are very important to the NBA because guys like Teague, Q Rich, and D Miles sacrifice their egos and they humble themselves in front of the person that they're interviewing, which in turn puts the interviewee at ease and creates a safe space that they might do the same. If you want to see the character of the person you're talking to, reveal something about yourself that may be seen as a flaw. Then see if the person you're talking to wants to connect on that vulnerability, or see if they use it to establish a higher status for themselves. Alright, thank you for being here. Like the video if you enjoyed it. Liking the video helps the show a lot, so if you want to help the show, the only thing you gotta do is like the video. I really appreciate it. And leave a recommendation. I think I just did this one for myself. I'll do another recommendation soon. I reply to every comment, so leave a comment, just say hi, or give an insight on something I talked about. Be good to your mothers, eat a corn dog.